Peace, and blessings, everyone. Maurice here, Friends of the Congo. We're going to address three items today. I'll be by myself. My comrades are caught up, so just be me giving an update based on what went down over the weekend, and both on the ground and regionally, and also internationally as well. So we'll start with just a brief update from Goma. Just a few items that are of particular note. We were speaking to some of the folks on the ground, and they exhorted. How can I say? They impressed upon us how critical it is for us to continue telling the truth. What does that mean? Telling the truth about what's happening, that it's a Rwandan war of aggression that's been ongoing for 3 decades, war of aggression and plunder. And we're at the stage today where we were in 2012, when Rwanda and its M23 militia captured the city of Goma. And in 2025, they've done the same thing again. The people are under occupation, and their voices are silenced. Speaking can out and result in death, and we've seen already 3,000, and those are just what's been documented thus far. And there are more to come. 3,000 people perished or killed within the past week or so. The people are under occupation. So that's one. Some of the camps are being dismantled, and people are either going further into Goma or going home. We've been told that the Rwandans and M23 are loading people in the trucks and taking them back to their villages. Also, one of the largest camps, Bulengo, looks like they're looking to shut that down because their people are resistance. There's resistance coming out of there, folks with guns. So Rwandan soldiers, M23, just looking to shut it down altogether and send people back home, which is a complicated matter. We won't get too much into that, but know that there is a tremendous amount of depredation, tremendous amount of fear, tremendous amount of anguish not only on the part of the residents of Goma, but those who have been displaced. And we'll get more into that as we look at the regional conferences that took place over the weekend at particularly the East African community and the Southern African Development Community that gathered in Tanzania, and what came out of that. We've seen this morning that the Congolese government said they've relocated the administrative capital of North Kivu to Beni. That's an interesting move on their part, and it looks like they're camping out there in Beni, which is north of Goma, and we'll see what developments come out of that, and we'll talk more about that as the week goes on. But the main item that we wanted to address for today is that summit that took place between the Southern African Development Community and the East African Community. East African Community made up of countries like, of course, Rwanda, Uganda. Those are two main countries. You have Kenya and Burundi and South Sudan. And I think Somalia is also part of it. And what they had organized a forum, the East African community that is, and the main drivers of the East African community are really Rwanda, Uganda, and Kenya. I think Tanzania may be a part of it as well. They organized a forum maybe about a week or so ago, where they issued a communique that President of Uganda, Yoweri Museveni, posted on his Twitter account. And the communique that the East African community issued said nothing about Rwanda's occupation of Goma. Now, Congo is also part of the East African community. They recently joined within the past year and a half or so, and they didn't show up. Neither Congo nor Burundi showed up for the East African community meeting maybe about 10 days or so ago. So the main things that came out of it, they didn't say anything about Rwanda's occupation, lifting Rwanda's occupation, and they implored the Congolese government to negotiate with the M23. They see that as the path forward, and they call the Congolese government back to the Nairobi Accords, right? And so that they had their own summit. And then we have the Southern African Development Community. Remember the Southern African Development Community, South Africa, Malawi, Tanzania, they have soldiers in the Congo as a part of the UN peacekeeping mission, as a part of what was really coming out of 2012, what they call the Force Intervention Brigade. That's when the United Nations strengthened its mandate. There was an African Union proposal on the table to have African soldiers be a part of the UN peacekeeping offensive, and that was adopted, and the UN peacekeeping mission of the Congo implemented what they call the Force Intervention Brigade, which was very effective in 2012 in driving Rwanda out of its occupation of Goma. And I'll keep saying this, Rwandan soldiers and its M23 militia occupied Goma in 2012, right? They occupied Goma in 2012. They captured territory in Eastern Congo. And 13 years later, we see the same thing, right? In fact, this pattern of Rwandan occupation, Rwandan instrumentalizing of militia groups, Rwanda command and control of militia groups in the Congo is a 30-year pattern. 1996, Alliance of Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Congo, what they call the AFDL, right? You had National Congress for the Defense of the People, CNDP, just all along. So if you do not take anything away, understand that this is a pattern on the part of the Rwandan government and the Ugandan government to occupy parts of Eastern Congo, use militia groups in that occupation, and to lead its war of aggression and plunder against the Congolese people. So what we're seeing today is not new, right? And neither the arguments that Paul Kagame is making, saying that, oh, we're going to protect the Tutsis, right? He's been making that argument for 30 years. Oh, we're going against, to attack and diminish wipe out Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, the FDLR, right? So it's been going on for 30 years. So Rwanda occupied Goma in 2012. They occupy Goma in 2025, along with its M23 militia. So the Force Intervention Brigade was a part of a robust response on the part of the United Nations, African Union in 2012. And the same thing again in 2024, 2025. Interestingly enough, when the Southern African Development Community sending its soldiers into the Congo for peacekeeping purposes and to combat the M23, Rwanda protested at the African Union. They sent a letter in protest saying that African Union shouldn't endorse South Africa's presence in the Eastern Congo. And the African Union rebuffed Rwanda's request, right? So this on the part of the Rwandan government to exercise total control over Eastern Congo has been ongoing. They either try to control it, Eastern Congo, destabilize Eastern Congo for their own benefits, right? The extraction of minerals, the making sure they're included in trade routes. If anything happening in Eastern Congo that has to do with trade and development, they want to be a part of it. They want to not only be a part of it, but want to have a say, control. They consider that their yard, so to speak. So, Southern African Development Community sent soldiers as part of peacekeeping mission. The South Africans lost about 14 soldiers, and Malawians lost about 13. And we shared with you there was a spat between Paul Kagame, president of Rwanda, and Cyril Ramaphosa, president of South Africa. They had spoken on the phone. So, Cyril Ramaphosa came out with statements about what happened during the talk. He made mention that he would consider any attack on South African soldiers by Rwanda a declaration of war. And that didn't sit too well with Paul Kagame. He came out and said that that's not what they discussed in their conversation. He even went on to say, Cyril Ramaphosa must have said that in his local language, which Kagame, doesn't understand. So he was very insulting, right? Arrogant. And then he basically went on to say, if South Africa wants to go to war, pretty much bring it on. We'll go to war with South Africa. And if you followed Kagame over the last 30 years, you know that's who he is. He's a warmonger, he's a thug, and that's how he rolls, right? So in any case, the meeting of the two regional blocs, the Southern African Development Community and the East African Community over the weekend in Tanzania produced a communique. By the way, neither the president of Burundi nor President Tshisekedi himself was there. He wasn't there in person. He participated virtually. He sent his Prime Minister Samia, to participate, to represent the Congo, which is interesting in and of itself. This is an important gathering of heads of state from both regional blocs, and President Tshisekedi chose not to attend in person, as he, he would say in the past, I want to see Kagame face to face and tell him, a few things. So he had his chance on Saturday. Kagame was there, but President Tshisekedi was a no-show, at least in person, anyways. But the more important thing is what came out of the summit, which was really, really disappointing in our opinion, right? You have to understand that there's been 2 emergency UN Security Council meetings. The G7 has spoken out on this. The European Union has spoken out on this. China, Russia, major powers, great powers, United States, have all spoken out on Rwanda's invasion and occupation of Goma. And without exception, they all call for Rwanda's soldiers to withdraw from the Congo, right? G7, US, European Union, UK, they say Rwanda's soldiers need to leave Congo, right? Now, interestingly enough, this summit between the East African community and Southern African Development Community did not make such an explicit call, right? They did not make such an explicit call, right? They made I'll share with you exactly what they said in the report, but it wasn't explicit. They did not call for Rwandan soldiers to leave the Congo. I don't even know if they mentioned Rwanda in the communique. They called for the Goma airport to be opened up so humanitarian aid can come in. They called for a humanitarian corridor. They called for a ceasefire. As one of the appeals that they made, for ceasefire. They called for the parties going back to both the Nairobi Accord Accords and the Luanda Accords, the two peace processes that are, that are in place right now, that offers a way out, let's say, through dialogue, through negotiations, right? So, but when it came to the question of withdrawal of Rwandan troops, they didn't even mention Rwanda. What the accord said was that for all foreign presence, uninvited foreign presence, to leave the Congo. And that was just so striking, right? They call it a ceasefire. They talk about securing the city of Goma. I don't know what that means in securing the city of Goma. The city of Goma is under occupation by the Rwandan soldiers and its M23 militia. They call for opening up the airport so humanitarian aid can get in. They talked about bringing the Luanda-Nairobi Accords together, right? And they also called for negotiations with the M23 directly, calling on the Congolese government to do that. They talked about even neutralizing the FDLR, right? And so they talked about all of that, but did not talk about Rwandan soldiers, going back to Rwanda. So, in fact, what they said like they have like a joint the joint mission, and what they recommend is that what they say is modalities, right, be established for the withdrawal of foreign armies that haven't been invited on the territory of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and that they would work it out, work those modalities out. So I was just wondering, after that, what was followed up was a statement by the Congolese government pretty much endorsing the communique, the elements in it. And then we saw the Rwandan foreign minister, released a video saying that the summit provided everything that Rwanda wanted, right? So all of this is supposed to happen, these measures, while Goma is still under occupation, while 2 million people are under the leadership of a foreign country and foreign military, right, in Rwanda. So what that obviously says several things. One, that Kinshasa is even weaker. One can maybe even argue even weaker diplomatically. Kinshasa, Tshisekedi, the political leadership in Kinshasa, maybe even weaker diplomatically than they are militarily, right? Because the country is occupied, and at an African bloc summit, they're not even able to get African heads of state to say that their country is occupied and to call for the end of the occupation of their country. So that's a sign of diplomatic weakness, that they haven't put in the work with this, especially particularly, we know the East African community is not going, they've been against, Kinshasa from jump. East Africa benefits from instability. Kenya and Uganda, Rwanda, they all benefit from the instability of the Congo in so many ways, right? So we know they don't mean Congolese people any good whatsoever. East African community does not mean the Congolese people any good whatsoever, right? If you were to dispassionately, objectively look at how they've moved in relation to the Congolese people, it's it's almost that they mock. William Ruto famously released a video where basically mocking the Congolese people, right? So the East African community, 2 of their members have invaded Congo twice, occupied the city of Goma twice, and have supported militia groups in the Congo for 3 decades. So they don't mean Congolese people any good. But with the Southern African Development Community, who came to the side of the Congolese people, most famously in 1998, to where they sent in military forces to beat back the Rwandan, the US-backed and UK-backed Rwandan and Ugandan invasion of 1998. You know, there's some history there of SADC coming to the side of the Congolese people. And if you watch the deliberations in the South African Parliament today, we see that energy and that solidarity is still very much there and in place. So I'm just really surprised that President Tshisekedi and the political class in Kinshasa were not on the same page with the Southern African Development Community going into the joint summit. Because if they're on the same page, those results that came out of the joint summit on Saturday would be fundamentally different. So what does all that mean? That means, I think that weakens Kinshasa's hand on the international level. If you have African nations coming together and laying out a roadmap, and that roadmap doesn't call for the lifting of the occupation of Goma, that doesn't accrue to the benefit of Kinshasa and the people of the Congo. So really, what that does, it really calls on the African masses, people of goodwill throughout the globe, to continue to put pressure on their governments, right, to endorse and support what the Congolese foreign minister, Madame Kaikwamba Wagner, which she laid out at the United Nations, 10 days or so ago, where she called for sanctions against Rwanda, where she called for trade embargo against Rwanda and trading minerals, where she called for Rwanda being blocked from being part of the UN peacekeeping, soldiers or UN peacekeeping mission, right? Call for arms embargo against Rwanda. So very strong measures that she put on the table, which one would think it was those measures that the Congolese government would bring to Tanzania as a part of the Southern African Development Community. One would think it was those measures that she laid out very explicitly and clearly at the UN Security Council that she would bring to the partners of the Southern African Development Community and say, this is where Congo stands, this is what we want you to stand on. The sanctioning of Paul Kagame and top officials in the Rwandan government, imposition of arms embargo, blocking minerals, but none of that, not a single one of those points, elements that she articulated on behalf of the Congolese government at the international level of the United Nations was brought to the joint summit of East African Community, Southern African Development Community. And then after the communique that came out, the Congolese government said that they're pleased with what came out. They're pleased with what came out that had no resemblance to what they've been arguing for at the international level. So I don't know where they go from here, diplomatically, right? Because they're being channeled into, I know they say it's the East African Community, Southern African Development Community joint declaration, but it's really an East African Community declaration, right? That it's really a Nairobi Accord, and the Luanda Accord, I don't know what they're going to bring over from there, right? And all of this time, the people of Goma will continue to be occupied and continue to be under the occupation of Rwandan soldiers with its M23 militia. So people are asking, well, what are some of the ways forward? I think, we have to remember what happened in 2012, and that formula still obtains to this very day, right? Rwanda, almost half of its budget comes from the donor community. It's Western backers. So we have to continue to put pressure on the European Union the UK, the United States, other European nations to withhold aid from Rwanda, right? As long as Rwanda is occupying the Congo, they shouldn't be getting any aid from these countries. We saw that Germany said that they're going to postpone a meeting that they're supposed to have with the Rwandan government to reassess their aid to Rwanda. I think the UK issued a communique saying pretty much the same thing. And we saw today Belgium saying that, they may do the same thing. So we have to keep pressure on these states. We encourage you to join us in doing that. That's one of our 5 actions that we call for. For people, irrespective of where they are, whether in North America, Europe, US, part of in the US itself, in Canada, you name it, right? So we have to continue to apply pressure. We encourage you to see our 5 action items. They're on our on the website or on Instagram page. You can also go to freecongo.org, and join our efforts. There are a number of organizations. I'll say this: I've just spoken to so many organizations from so many countries, and the world is behind the Congo. The world is behind the Congolese people, right? Ordinary people throughout the world are behind the Congolese people. They just need to clear direction, clear action, and precise. How can I say? Precise action on or strategies for pressuring these governments. The demands, the demands that we have are that the Rwanda's donors to cut aid. That's what was done in 2012. Tens of millions of dollars were cut from the Rwandan government. And that's an important demand or ask. And those are in Europe, right? In the European Union. That's something. Had a call with folks from Germany, and that's one of the demands we're putting on the table. The folks in the UK are already doing that, and there are folks in Netherlands, Belgium, Spain, Denmark are heading in that direction as well. The European Union, we'll stick with Europe for a moment, entered into a critical minerals deal with the Rwandan government as Rwanda was capturing the largest, coltan mine in the Congo, in Rubaya, on the continent, really. And so we're calling for the European Union to cancel its critical minerals deal with the Rwandan government. Based on its ethics charter, they're not supposed to be entering into a deal with a government that is violating international law, invading a sovereign nation, occupying it. That just goes against their charter. But that deal is still on the table. So we encourage you to pressure the representatives of the European Union. They're all on social media. Send them texts, send them, video message, and let them know that we cancel this critical minerals deal with the agreement with the Rwandan government. The European Union, they have a civil society counterpart that each member state umbrella of civil society groups that can have a say at the EU. We encourage you to reach out to them. If you want to find out how to be in communication with them, just send us a DM on IG or on Twitter, or send us email at info@friendsofthecongo.org, and we'll provide you with the list. I may have the list, Kito, that I can share. I'll see if I can pull it up and share it with you. So that's important. Withdrawal of aid across the board: Canada, US, European nations, United Kingdom. Cancellation of the deal with the critical minerals deal with Rwanda. Now, what Rwanda has done in order to cover the crimes that it has committed, both in its country and in the Congo, is what they call sports washing. They'll get entertainers and sports teams. They'll establish agreements with them. Say, visit Rwanda. We're a global, good citizen, good global citizen, and you should come and visit Rwanda. So we're saying to people in the campaign, do not visit Rwanda. Football teams like Saint Germain and Arsenal, the World Cyclist Championship that they're looking to have in Kigali in September. We're calling on people to put pressure on these institutions to break their ties with the Rwandan government, right? The football teams, the cyclists, football teams out of Europe, the cyclist federation, break that tie with the Rwandan government. So those are very concrete actions that we're asking people to take. There are networks of Congolese and allies connecting in different parts of Europe. You can hit us up on a DM on Instagram or even on Twitter if you want to be involved and be a part of that network and be plugged in, so we can move in unison. There are just a number of institutions who are empathetic to the Congolese people and ready to take action. So that's happening, right? So I've laid out some of those institutions to focus on Europe. Now, on our side here in the U.S., we have, sticking with the whole sports washing, entertainment washing, right? We've had like Dave Chappelle, who has gone to Rwanda to perform, and Kendrick Lamar. Y'all just saw him at the Grammys, and then you saw him at the Super Bowl yesterday. Halftime performance. They've all gone to Rwanda to perform. And February 21st, John Legend is supposed to go with Global Citizen, organization called Global Citizen. So we're calling on people to appeal to John Legend. You stand up for civil rights in the US. You cannot stand up for civil rights in the US and collude with the commission of crimes against humanity in the Congo, right? That's in essence what's happening, right? 3,000 people have been killed as a result of the occupation of Goma, at least that we know of. 150 or so women have been raped and then burnt alive, right? Raped and burnt alive. This all came out of the occupation, right? And you have Rwanda, violating international law by occupying a sovereign country. So John Legend can't say he stands for civil rights and for Black lives in the United States while going to Kigali, Rwanda, hobnobbing with Paul Kagame, who's committing war crimes against humanity. His soldiers are in the Congo. There's a deep contradiction there, right? So appeal to him, appeal to him on the principles, not only that he says he stands for in the US, but on the principles that Global Citizen says that it's organizing this Move Africa, performance, right? Total contradiction, fly in the face of what they say they're organizing around. And this is so critical because we'd spoken to somebody in Goma, and he shared with us, this person said, tell the truth, let people know what's happening. We speak, we may die, we may get killed. Tell the truth. And the truth of the matter is, Rwanda is occupying Goma. Rwanda has destabilized the Congo, led a war of aggression and plunder against the Congolese people for 3 decades. And Global Citizen knows this. They know it, right? So hit them up on Twitter, hit them up on Instagram, right? Let them know, we see you. Your values mean nothing if you're going to Kigali and enrolling John Legend to do the same, right? What you say you stand for, there's nothing under it, right? There's nothing to it. You know, what you're doing right now is covering for war crimes, rape, you know, the execution of young children, child recruitment in the Congo, the plundering of the country. That's what these sports team and these entertainment and figures and these global citizen organizations are standing on right now. Irrespective of what their purpose and their aim say, if you're standing with Kagame, you're standing with the occupation, you're co-signing the occupation of the Congo. If you're standing with Kagame, you're co-signing those women who were raped and burnt alive. You're saying that you're cleansing that crime, right? Because the Rwandan soldiers, M23, created the environment in which that could happen. And then the environment in which that could happen is an occupied Goma, a Goma that was invaded, right? So hit up John Legend, continue to hit him up, hit up Global Citizen, and ask them to resolve their contradiction, right? Demand that they resolve their contradiction, right? So that's really important. Do not visit Rwanda campaign. If the African leaders are failing the Congolese people, then we need African people to stand up on the side of the Congolese people, right? To stand with the Congolese people, right? So that's why I was just heartened to see what people were saying in the South African Parliament today. Brother Julius Malema, where he went in on Kagame. We need to say, African people say that as long as Kagame is occupying the Congo and creating an environment where women are raped and burnt alive and thousands are killed, you can't come in our country. At least you can't come to Nigeria without a protest, right? You can't come to Ghana without a protest. We'll meet you at the airport and we're going to be protesting your ass, right? You can't come anywhere on the continent saying that you're an African leader when you're killing Africans on behalf of, right, foreign capital, foreign corporations, because that coltan that you're stealing out of Congo is going into companies, global corporations. So that's really critical for African people, ordinary people throughout the continent who are offended by the lies and the propaganda, coming out of Kigali. One thing that came out of the East African and SADC summit, they said that, I want to make sure I say it right. They said that, when Congo goes after, quote unquote, goes after the Alliance of Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, FDLR, right? Then that would give Rwanda the latitude to relax its defensive measures, right? This is like straight up George Orwell, gobbledygook, right? Because what Kagame and the Rwandan government is arguing is that they're in the Congo. They don't say they're in the Congo. They say they're undertaking defensive measures because of threat from the 1,000 or so FDLR, right? Now, mind you, the Congolese government, the former president of Congo allowed Rwanda to come in, in 2008, 2009 in this operation called Umoja Wetu to go after the FDLR, right? And they didn't get rid of them then. Congolese governors repeatedly bring Rwandan soldiers in, right? But in any case, and even in addition to that, Rwanda makes the argument that, FDLR is a threat. Do you know one of the biggest battles that Rwanda had in the Congo was not with the FDLR, was with the Ugandan military in 2000. They call it the 6-Day War. Look it up. Uganda, Rwanda, 6-Day War in Kisangani, where they fought over Congolese minerals. One of the biggest battles that they had in the Congo was against their partner in crime. Gangsters, in essence, gangsters falling out over the spoils, right? Because Rwanda and Uganda, they've, been, co-compatriots in the invasions and wars of aggression and plunder against Congo. So In any case, this statement that came out of the communique, where Paul Kagame talking about we have to exercise defensive measures. Their defensive measures, let me break it down. Defensive measures mean they're occupying the Congo, being the head of the control and command of a militia group called M23. That's what they mean by defensive measures, right? Defensive measures mean capturing the largest coltan mine in the Congo in Africa, right? In Rubaya. Those are the defensive measures. So when you see Kagame come on television talking about defensive measures, you're like, I don't know, you see those split screens that these influencers do when somebody's talking up top of them, looking at them askance. That's what you need to look at them askance like that. So in any case, so pressure, global citizen, pressure, John Legend, right? Those are things that we need to do, and it's up to the people, right? We have tremendous opportunity to show up for the Congolese people, to stand with the Congolese people, to dismantle the lies, dismantle the propaganda. And that's one of the key things that every single one of you can do, is to make sure you articulate the narrative about what's happening in the Congo. Because the Kagame regime and its propaganda machine, right, are pushing a narrative that has nothing to do with reality. Fact, Rwanda has led a 30-year war of aggression and plunder against the Congolese people. Invaded in 1996, invaded again in 1998. That 1998 invasion triggered what the United Nations says the deadliest conflict in the world since World War II, where an estimated 5.4 million people perished as a result of that invasion. Supported and continued to support militia groups inside the Congo. 3 decades. Occupied the city of Goma, the capital of North Kivu, in 2012, right? Occupying the Goma right now in 2025. So there is a track record of history, data, evidence, right? And they're counting on you being ignorant about this, not knowing this fact. So they tell you that they're exercising defensive measures to protect a minority group. Everybody in the Congo is a minority. Everybody in the Congo is a minority. There's no majority group in the Congo, right? And even if the argument was, even if the argument was, that you give them 100%, to say, okay, there's a minority group that's being discriminated against and needs to be protected. Does that warrant invading a country, right? Sending thousands of soldiers into a city of 2 million people, half the size of Washington, D.C., to occupy it, creating an environment where thousands of Congolese are killed, 150 or so women raped and then burnt alive? Is that the response for the discrimination against a minority group in the Congo? So we're, just like our folks in Goma shared with us, tell the truth, right? The narrative is key. They're using a narrative, right? Using the genocide, they're weaponizing genocide, the victims of genocide, they're weaponizing genocide in order to commit war crimes, crimes against humanity, and even genocide against another people. Does that sound familiar? Gaza, Israel, right? We know the blueprint. That's what's happening. The blueprint that we see in Gaza, that's what's happening in Goma. We know that. That's the blueprint. Maybe not on the same scale, but that's the formula. So each and every one of us can play a role in articulating the narrative. Congolese people are being victimized by a warmonger, occupying their territory, killing their children, raping their women, killing their men, killing their children, raping their women, and stealing their resources. That's what the evidence lays out, even if you look at it dispassionately. And it's not even like Friends of Congo saying that. It's like the latest UN report, group of experts report, lay that out. Talked about the amount of money that they're making, the militia group and the Rwandan soldiers each month, because since they took over Rubaya, right? So that's so critical. If you telling that story. We encourage you to make videos and social media, let your friends know, your family members know what's really happening, what Rwanda is doing, the Rwandan government is doing. And we need to continue to join with our Congolese brothers and sisters in conveying the message about what's happening in Goma and North Kivu overall in the occupied territories. Let's see, what can we do to elevate? And I'll just respond to that question about what we can do to elevate this movement. Use the social media, reach out to faith institutions. We have an effort, we're engaging faith institutions. This is a moral issue. We've said it, before, and we'll say it again. This is a test for the African continent for sure, where the heart of the African continent is being ravaged by other Africans, right? Piling on an already existing colonial legacy. You have these agents of neocolonialism doing the bidding of foreign companies and foreign governments. So this is a test for Africa, and it's also a test for humanity. Are we going to say as human beings that we're going to be silent, that we're not going to take action when 150 women are raped and burnt alive because of the occupation and thousands of people being killed? Is that what we're going to say? We're not. What makes them turn their head from the opportunity of making money? We don't have to convince Rwanda to do anything. I don't think we're going to convince Rwanda to do anything. What we shared is in 2012, aid was withheld from Rwanda to the tunes of tens of millions of dollars. In Washington, we put pressure on the Obama administration. Throughout Europe, people were putting pressure on their governments in Europe, and tens of millions of dollars were withheld in aid. The European Union has a deal with Rwanda, a critical minerals deal. We need to put pressure on the European Union to cancel that deal, right? The UN has the wherewithal to sanction the Rwandan government. We need to, those of you who are not in Europe, not in the United States, not in Canada, you may be in Australia, New Zealand, Malaysia, Vietnam, you may be in Philippines, you may be in Chile, Peru, you may be somewhere in the Caribbean, right? You may be in India. Reach out to your governments, encourage your governments to support the demands of the Congolese government at the United Nations, right? At the United Nations. The question about the DRC president, I'll let the Congolese, when Gaetan come on and talk about that. You really don't want to kick somebody when I don't want anyways, when they're down, right? I can tell you what, I'll give you an anecdote. The commanders of the Congolese military left the military, the field soldiers, hanging high and dry in Goma, right? About 1,000 of them surrendered, turned over their arms to the Rwandan military and their M23. And they were loaded up in trucks to go for re-education, another part of Goma. About 1,000 Congolese soldiers and said. What some of them were saying is that if they could get their hands on the Congolese president, they would rip him to shreds. Right? I can tell you the average person in Goma, at least without exception, the people that we've been able to speak to, they are fuming. They are fuming. They are furious, right? They are up to here with their president, right? Because they felt, remember this began in 2021. Bunagana was occupied in 2022. Young Congolese, when Bunagana, this border, right on the border between Uganda and Congo, when it was occupied, young Congolese demonstrated in Kinshasa, making an appeal to the government. Listen, our people in the East are occupied. They're suffering. There's a foreign army occupying Congolese territory. Let's do something. You know what the Congolese government did? Arrested the young people, right? Chased them out of the country, right? So this was Bunagana has been occupied since 2022, right? So I can just share with you what Congolese in Goma and elsewhere sharing with us, right? They're furious, right? So keep an eye on Kinshasa. There may be some surprises coming out of Kinshasa based on the current environment and, what has occurred over the past 2 to 3 years. So anyways, we're running right up on our time. I think I've filibustered long enough. Remember, there's something for each and every one of you to do. Those who want to stand with the Congolese people, those who want to stand on the side of justice, those who would like to see peace reign in the heart of the African continent, those who abhor the warmongers, whether they're in Gaza, Israel, or in Kigali, and now in Goma, right? There's something for each and every one of you to do. We have action items, very concrete actions that you can take that can make a difference if aggregated, right? You can't have it disparate, different folks, actions here and there, just very concrete actions, pressuring European, US, Canadian governments, withhold aid from Rwanda. It's on the top of the list, right? Calling on the European Union to cancel its critical minerals deal with the Rwandan government. And you all can send them messages. The 27 members of the EU, they're very sensitive to messages on social media. They're all there. You can send them messages, video message, text message, let them know. Putting pressure on those teams that are participating in sports washing, right? Arsenal, Saint-Germain, there's another German football team, Berlin, I believe is a name. The World Cyclist Championship scheduled to be in Kigali in September. Pressure on all of them. John Legend, World Citizen, pressure on all of them, right? Very, very vital. Pressure on the UN, calling on your own government, writing letters to your own government, calling on your own elected officials, irrespective of the country you're in, to support the Congo demands at the United Nations. People need help on the ground. There's a tremendous amount of help needed. We work with the Basanja Coalition. They are collaborating 24 local organizations in Goma right now and they're providing relief support the best way they can. We encourage you to join in that. If you go to freecongo.org, you can see how you can support folks on the ground. It's not easy to get resources in, but they can be gotten in. And you can help, you can support. And continue to spread the word, continue to share the narrative, continue to challenge, the Rwanda bots, that out there trying to spin apart a narrative that justifies the occupation. Goma is being occupied by Rwanda. Goma is being occupied by Rwanda. Rwanda is the command and control of a militia group inside the Congo called the M23. This is an old formula that goes back to 1996. Again, an old formula that goes back to 1996. Let us get the message through to Paul Kagame and the Rwandan leadership that time is up. Enough is enough. Millions of Congolese have perished. You haven't been held to account. Justice hasn't been delivered. We, the people of the world, we're going to stand by our Congolese brothers and sisters. We're going to stand by the sons and the daughters of the Congo until peace reigns, until justice is delivered. All right? So thank you. Free Congo, freecongo.org, freecongo.org, in order to be a part of this movement, in order to take action, in order to learn more, in order to support our brothers and sisters in the Congo. Thank you. And we'll be back with you a little later throughout the week. There's so much going on, and we have much to share. All right, be well. Peace.